Philadelphia pulses with the energy of a modern American city, but beneath its bustling streets and gleaming skyscrapers lies a story that shaped the very foundation of our nation. Tonight, we'll uncover how a simple Quaker settlement along the Delaware River grew into the birthplace of American independence and evolved into one of the country's most dynamic metropolitan areas. Philadelphia has weathered colonial struggles, revolutionary battles, industrial booms, urban decay, and remarkable revival to become home to over 6 million people in its greater metropolitan area. We'll begin with an unexpected discovery beneath the city's oldest neighborhoods, and from there, we'll trace the relentless growth of a city that dared to dream of liberty and justice for all. So just relax and let your mind wander as we explore the fascinating history of Philadelphia, the city that gave birth to America. When you think of Philadelphia today, perhaps you picture the iconic Liberty Bell, the imposing steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art, or the passionate fans cheering at Lincoln Financial Field. This city feels like the very heart of American democracy, and indeed Independence Hall stands as the birthplace of both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. With its rich colonial architecture and vibrant neighborhoods like Old City and Society Hill, there's an undeniable sense that this place has witnessed the most pivotal moments in our nation's story. Relatively speaking, much of Philadelphia's current skyline isn't that ancient. The towering Comcast Center was completed in the 21st century, as were many of the modern developments that define the city's business district. But the area now known as Philadelphia has been significant to human civilization for thousands of years. And it's also the site of another hidden history that most visitors never discover. During construction projects throughout the city over the decades, archaeologists have unearthed fascinating remnants of the past. Stone tools, pottery fragments, and evidence of Native American settlements that flourished long before any European ever set foot on these shores. These artifacts tell the story of the Lenape people, who called this region home for countless generations. It's remarkable to imagine that here, where commuters rushed to catch SEPTA trains, indigenous communities once thrived along the riverbanks. However, the true recorded history of Philadelphia must begin with its European origins and the visionary who dared to create something unprecedented in the New World. Humans had inhabited the Delaware River Valley for thousands of years before Europeans arrived. The Lenape, also known as the Delaware, had established numerous villages throughout the region. They were skilled hunters, farmers, and traders who understood the natural rhythms of the land. The area that would become Philadelphia was particularly attractive because of its location, where the Schuylkill River meets the Delaware, providing excellent access to both river systems for transportation and trade. The Lenape lived in harmony with the seasons, moving between permanent villages and seasonal camps. They cultivated corn, beans and squash, hunted deer and smaller game, and harvested the abundant fish from the rivers. Their society was sophisticated and organized, with complex political structures and rich cultural traditions. These indigenous communities had developed sustainable relationships with their environment over centuries, creating a foundation of knowledge about the land that would prove invaluable to later settlers. By the early 1600s, European explorers had begun to venture into the Delaware Bay and up the river system. Dutch, Swedish, and Finnish settlers established small trading posts and settlements throughout the region during the first half of the 17th century. However, these early European efforts were relatively modest in scale and impact compared to what was about to unfold. The transformation of this peaceful river valley into one of America's most important cities began with one man's extraordinary vision of religious tolerance and social justice. In 1681, King Charles II of England granted William Penn a massive tract of land in the New World to settle a debt owed to Penn's father. This land grant, which would become Pennsylvania, represented an unprecedented opportunity for Penn to put his Quaker beliefs into practice on a grand scale. Penn envisioned a colony where people of all faiths could worship freely, where Native Americans would be treated with respect and fairness, and where democratic principles could flourish. Penn had experienced religious persecution firsthand in England, where Quakers faced imprisonment, fines, and social ostracism for their beliefs. The Society of Friends, as Quakers were formerly known, advocated for pacifism, equality, and direct spiritual experience without the need for formal clergy. These revolutionary ideas put them at odds with both the established Church of England and the prevailing social order. With his Pennsylvania Charter in hand, Penn began planning what he called his holy experiment. He wanted to create a city that would serve as the capital of his new colony, a place that embodied his ideals of tolerance, justice, and prosperity. Penn chose a location between the Delaware and Schuylkill rivers, recognizing the strategic and commercial advantages of this position. He named his planned city Philadelphia, combining the Greek words for brotherly love. Penn's vision for Philadelphia was remarkably advanced for its time. He designed the city on a grid system with wide streets, public squares, and ample space for gardens and trees. This urban planning was revolutionary in an era when most cities had grown organically with narrow, winding streets. Penn wanted Philadelphia to be what he called a green country town, combining the benefits of urban life with the beauty and health of the countryside. The city plan that Penn developed in 1682 established the framework that still defines Center City, Philadelphia today. He laid out a rectangular grid with Broad Street running north to south and Market Street running east to west, intersecting at what is now City Hall. 5 public squares were incorporated into the design, including what is now Washington Square, Rittenhouse Square, Logan Square, and Franklin Square, with a central square where City Hall would eventually stand. Penn's commitment to fair dealing with Native Americans set Pennsylvania apart from many other colonial ventures. He insisted on purchasing land from the Lenape through formal treaties rather than simply claiming it by right of conquest. The famous treaty between Penn and the Lenape chief Tamenend, celebrated in Benjamin West's painting, established a foundation of mutual respect that would characterize Pennsylvania's early relations with indigenous peoples. This peaceful approach to colonization proved remarkably successful. While other colonies struggled with constant warfare and tension with Native American tribes, Pennsylvania enjoyed decades of relative peace and cooperation. This stability created an environment where commerce could flourish and diverse communities could take root. Word of Penn's holy experiment spread quickly throughout Europe, attracting settlers from many different backgrounds. Quakers formed the initial core of immigration, but they were soon joined by German Mennonites, Dutch Reformed families, Welsh Baptists, and others seeking religious freedom. This diversity became one of Philadelphia's defining characteristics from its very beginning. The first settlers arrived in Philadelphia in late 1682, and the city grew with remarkable speed. Within just a few years, the population had swelled to several thousand inhabitants. The combination of religious tolerance, economic opportunity, and peaceful relations with Native Americans created powerful incentives for immigration. Unlike the harsh early years experienced by many other colonial settlements, Philadelphia enjoyed relative prosperity almost from its founding. The city's location proved to be ideal for commerce. Ships could sail up the Delaware River directly to Philadelphia's waterfront, while the Schuylkill River provided access to the interior regions of Pennsylvania. This geographic advantage, combined with Penn's policies encouraging trade and manufacturing, quickly established Philadelphia as one of the most important commercial centers in colonial America. By the early 1700s, Philadelphia had become the largest city in the American colonies, surpassing even Boston and New York in population and economic influence. The city's port bustled with activity as ships arrived carrying immigrants, and manufactured goods from Europe, while departing vessels carried American agricultural products, lumber, and other raw materials to markets across the Atlantic. The economic success of Philadelphia attracted skilled craftsmen, merchants, and professionals who contributed to the city's growing sophistication. Printing houses, breweries, shipyards, and various manufacturing enterprises flourished. The famous Philadelphia Contribution Ship for the insurance of houses from loss by fire, founded in 1752, was one of the first fire insurance companies in America, reflecting the city's innovative business culture. Philadelphia's commitment to education and intellectual pursuits also set it apart from other colonial cities. The city became home to some of America's first institutions of higher learning, libraries, and scientific societies. This intellectual ferment would prove crucial in the coming decades as Philadelphia evolved into the philosophical heart of the American independence movement. The diverse population that Penn's policies had attracted created a unique social dynamic in Philadelphia. While tensions certainly existed between different ethnic and religious groups, the city maintained a relatively high degree of tolerance compared to other colonial settlements. This pluralistic environment fostered innovation, debate, and the exchange of ideas that would prove essential to the development of democratic institutions. As we move deeper into the 18th century, we'll see how this foundation of tolerance, prosperity, and intellectual curiosity positioned Philadelphia to play the leading role in the most important political revolution in human history. The city that William Penn envisioned as a haven for religious minorities was about to become the birthplace of a new nation founded on principles of liberty and self-governance. The transformation from colonial trading center to revolutionary capital would test everything that Philadelphia had built during its first century of existence. But the city's fundamental character would prove strong enough not only to survive the coming challenges, but to lead the way toward independence and democracy. The seeds of revolution that would eventually bloom in Philadelphia were planted not through dramatic proclamations or violent uprisings, but through the quiet accumulation of grievances and the gradual awakening of colonial consciousness. During the first half of the 18th century, Philadelphia continued to prosper and grow, but beneath this surface success, fundamental tensions were building between the American colonies and their British rulers. By 1750, Philadelphia had become the second largest English-speaking city in the world, trailing only London itself. The population had swelled to over 20,000 residents, with the greater Delaware Valley region supporting many thousands more. This remarkable growth reflected not just natural increase, but continued immigration from Europe, as word of Pennsylvania's prosperity and tolerance continued to attract settlers from across the Atlantic. The city's physical expansion during this period was equally impressive. Philadelphia had grown far beyond William Penn's original boundaries, spreading north and south along the Delaware River and west toward the Schuylkill. New neighborhoods emerged to accommodate the growing population, while the original city center became increasingly dense with commercial and residential buildings. The famous brick architecture that still characterizes much of historic Philadelphia began to take shape during these decades. Philadelphia's role as a center of intellectual life became even more pronounced during the mid-18th century. The city attracted some of the most brilliant minds in colonial America, individuals who would later play crucial roles in the independence movement. Benjamin Franklin, who had arrived in Philadelphia as a young man seeking opportunity, embodied the city's spirit of innovation and practical wisdom. His contributions to science, publishing, and civic organization helped establish Philadelphia's reputation as the intellectual capital of America. Franklin's influence extended far beyond his individual achievements. He founded numerous institutions that became pillars of Philadelphia society, including the first public library, the first fire company, and the academy that would become the University of Pennsylvania. His printing business and newspaper, the Pennsylvania Gazette, helped spread ideas and information throughout the colonies, while his scientific experiments with electricity brought international recognition to Philadelphia. The city's growing importance attracted other notable figures who would shape American history. John Bartram established America's first botanical garden along the Schuylkill River, creating a center for scientific research that attracted scholars from Europe and throughout the colonies. The American Philosophical Society, founded in 1743 with Franklin as a key organizer, became the premier scientific organization in colonial America and continues to thrive today. This intellectual ferment was not confined to elite circles. Philadelphia's diverse population and commitment to education created an environment where ideas could circulate freely among different social classes and ethnic groups. Coffee houses, taverns, and public meetings provided venues for debate and discussion that would prove crucial when political tensions began to escalate. The economic foundations of Philadelphia's prosperity were also evolving during this period. While commerce remained central to the city's economy, manufacturing was becoming increasingly important. Philadelphia's skilled craftsmen produced goods that rivaled European imports in quality while costing significantly less. This growing economic independence would later contribute to colonial resistance when Britain attempted to tighten control over American trade. The city's shipbuilding industry was particularly significant, both economically and strategically. Philadelphia shipyards produced vessels that carried American goods to markets around the world, creating wealth and establishing commercial relationships that would prove valuable during the independence struggle. The skills and infrastructure developed in these shipyards would also prove crucial during the Revolutionary War, when American forces needed to challenge British naval supremacy. Religious life in Philadelphia continued to reflect William Penn's original vision of tolerance and diversity. By the 1750s, the city was home to Quaker meetings, Anglican churches, Presbyterian congregations, Baptist assemblies, German Reformed communities, Lutheran parishes, and Jewish synagogues. This religious pluralism was remarkable for its time and created a social environment where different perspectives could coexist and interact. However, this diversity also created challenges. Different ethnic and religious communities sometimes clashed over economic opportunities, political representation, and cultural practices. The growing German population, in particular, caused some anxiety among English-speaking residents who worried about maintaining their cultural dominance. These internal tensions would complicate Philadelphia's response to the growing conflict with Britain. The first serious challenge to Philadelphia's relationship with British authority came during the French and Indian War, which lasted from 1754 to 1763. Pennsylvania's Quaker-dominated government initially resisted supporting the war effort due to their pacifist principles, creating friction with British military commanders and other colonial governments. This conflict forced Philadelphians to confront fundamental questions about their loyalty to British authority and their commitment to their own principles. The war's aftermath brought even more serious challenges. Britain, facing enormous debts from the conflict, began implementing new policies designed to extract revenue from the American colonies. The Sugar Act of 1764 and the Stamp Act of 1765 directly affected Philadelphia's merchants and professionals, creating the first organized resistance to British policies in the city. Philadelphia's response to the Stamp Act demonstrated the city's growing political sophistication. Rather than resorting to the violent protests that occurred in some other cities, Philadelphia's resistance was largely organized through merchant associations and legal petitions. The city's lawyers, led by figures like John Dickinson, developed sophisticated constitutional arguments against British taxation without colonial representation in Parliament. The success of the Stamp Act resistance encouraged further organization and cooperation among Philadelphia's various communities. Merchants, craftsmen, and professionals who had previously focused on their own particular interests began to see themselves as part of a broader colonial movement. This growing sense of shared identity would prove crucial as tensions with Britain continued to escalate. The Townshend Acts of 1767 brought new challenges and opportunities for colonial resistance. Philadelphia merchants again took the lead in organizing boycotts of British goods, demonstrating the economic power that the city had accumulated over decades of growth. These boycotts were remarkably effective, forcing British merchants to pressure their government for policy changes. The non-importation movement also had important social consequences in Philadelphia. It encouraged local manufacturing and created new economic opportunities for skilled craftsmen who could produce goods previously imported from Britain. This economic nationalism would become a lasting feature of Philadelphia's identity and contribute to the city's continued growth during and after the Revolutionary War. As the 1770s dawned, Philadelphia found itself at the center of an increasingly serious imperial crisis. The city that William Penn had envisioned as a haven of peace and tolerance was about to become the stage for some of the most important political developments in human history. The intellectual traditions, economic strength, and social diversity that had developed over nearly a century would all be tested in the crucible of revolution. The gathering storm clouds of conflict would soon transform Philadelphia from a prosperous colonial city into the birthplace of American independence. But the foundations laid during these formative decades would prove strong enough to support the enormous challenges that lay ahead. That lay the transformation from colonial discontent to open revolution accelerated dramatically in the early 1770s, and Philadelphia found itself at the epicenter of events that would reshape the world. The city's unique combination of economic power, intellectual sophistication, and political experience positioned it to lead the American colonies toward independence. But the path would be neither simple nor certain. The Boston Tea Party in December 1773 sent shockwaves throughout the American colonies, and Philadelphia's response revealed the depth of anti-British sentiment that had been building for years. When news reached the city that the British government had closed Boston Harbor and imposed what colonists called the Intolerable Acts, Philadelphia's merchants and political leaders recognized that their own liberties were at stake. The principle was clear: if Britain could punish Massachusetts so severely, no colony was safe from arbitrary government action. Philadelphia's reaction was swift and decisive. The city's Committee of Correspondence, established to coordinate resistance with other colonies, worked tirelessly to build support for Massachusetts and organize colonial opposition. Public meetings in the State House yard drew thousands of citizens who listened to passionate speeches denouncing British tyranny and calling for unified colonial action. The decision to convene a Continental Congress in Philadelphia was not accidental. The city's central location made it accessible to delegates from all 13 colonies, while its excellent accommodations and sophisticated infrastructure could support a large gathering of colonial leaders. Perhaps most importantly, Philadelphia's reputation for tolerance and reasoned debate made it an ideal venue for the delicate negotiations that would be required to forge colonial unity. When the First Continental Congress convened in September 1774, Philadelphia welcomed delegates from 12 colonies who gathered in Carpenter's Hall to coordinate resistance to British policies. The city's taverns and coffeehouses buzzed with political conversation as delegates from different regions met to discuss their common grievances and potential solutions. For many delegates, this was their first visit to Philadelphia, and they were impressed by the city's prosperity, sophistication, and obvious commitment to the colonial cause. The Congress's deliberations reflected the careful balance that characterized Philadelphia's approach to the imperial crisis. Rather than rushing toward independence, the delegates sought to exhaust all possibilities for reconciliation with Britain, while firmly defending colonial rights. The Continental Association, which organized a comprehensive boycott of British goods, demonstrated the economic leverage that Philadelphia and other major commercial centers could exercise. Philadelphia's merchants played a crucial role in implementing the boycott, despite the significant financial sacrifices it required. The city's commercial networks, built up over decades of trade, provided the infrastructure necessary to coordinate resistance across the colonies. Ships that had once carried British-manufactured goods now carried messages of defiance and solidarity between colonial ports. The period between the First and Second Continental Congresses saw Philadelphia's political consciousness evolve rapidly. Thomas Paine's arrival in the city in 1774 added a new voice to the growing chorus of colonial dissent. His pamphlet Common Sense, published in Philadelphia in January 1776, articulated arguments for independence that many colonists had been thinking but had not yet dared to express openly. Paine's pamphlet was perfectly suited to Philadelphia's diverse population. Written in plain language that ordinary citizens could understand, it made sophisticated political arguments accessible to craftsmen, shopkeepers, and labourers who had previously been excluded from high-level political discourse. The pamphlet sold thousands of copies in Philadelphia alone and helped transform the debate from resistance to British policies to the necessity of complete independence. When the Second Continental Congress convened in Philadelphia in May 1775, the political situation had changed dramatically. The battles of Lexington and Concord had already been fought, and the colonies found themselves in a state of armed rebellion against British authority. Philadelphia delegates now faced the momentous question of whether to seek reconciliation or declare independence. The city's atmosphere during the spring and summer of 1776 was electric with possibility and tension. Delegates debated the most fundamental questions of political philosophy, while Philadelphia's citizens watched and waited for decisions that would determine their future. The Pennsylvania State House, now known as Independence Hall, became the stage for arguments that would echo through history. Virginia Delegate Richard Henry Lee's resolution calling for independence, introduced on June 7, 1776, forced the Continental Congress to confront the question that many had been avoiding. The debate that followed revealed deep divisions among the delegates, with Pennsylvania's own delegation split on the issue. The conservative Quaker influence that had shaped the colony's early development now clashed with the revolutionary fervour that was sweeping through other parts of America. John Dickinson, Pennsylvania's most prominent political leader, argued eloquently against immediate independence, warning that the colonies were not yet prepared for the challenges of self-government and war with the British Empire. His position reflected the cautious, legalistic approach that had characterized Philadelphia's resistance movement, but it was increasingly out of step with popular sentiment, both in the city and throughout the colonies. The appointment of a committee to draft a Declaration of Independence marked a turning point in both American history and Philadelphia's role in the revolutionary movement. Thomas Jefferson of Virginia was chosen to write the document, but he did his work in a rented room on the outskirts of Philadelphia, drawing inspiration from the city's intellectual traditions and the revolutionary arguments that had been developing in its coffee houses and meeting halls for years. The philosophical foundations of the Declaration of Independence reflected ideas that had been circulating in Philadelphia for decades. The concept of natural rights, the social contract theory of government, and the right of revolution had all been discussed and debated in the city's intellectual circles long before Jefferson put pen to paper. The influence of Philadelphia's diverse religious traditions can also be seen in the document's emphasis on the equality of all men and their endowment by their creator with unalienable rights. On July 4, 1776, the Continental Congress approved the final text of the Declaration of Independence in the Pennsylvania State House. The moment was both triumphant and terrifying for the delegates and the city that hosted them. Philadelphia had become the birthplace of American independence, but this honor came with enormous risks and responsibilities. The immediate aftermath of the Declaration's adoption revealed the magnitude of the challenge facing Philadelphia and the new United States. The city now found itself the capital of a rebel nation at war with the most powerful empire in the world. British naval forces controlled the seas, while British armies were already moving to crush the rebellion before it could gain momentum. Philadelphia's strategic importance made it an obvious target for British military action. The city's port, manufacturing capabilities, and role as the seat of revolutionary government made it essential to both American success and British efforts to restore imperial control. The residents of Philadelphia understood that their city would likely become a battleground in the struggle for independence. The challenges facing Philadelphia in the summer of 1776 were immense. The Continental Congress had declared independence but lacked the resources to fight a war against Britain. The Continental Army was poorly equipped and inexperienced, while the British possessed the world's most powerful navy and battle-tested professional soldiers. Philadelphia's merchants and craftsmen would need to support the war effort, while somehow maintaining the economic activity necessary for urban survival. Despite these daunting challenges, Philadelphia embraced its role as the capital of revolutionary America with remarkable determination. The city's workshops began producing weapons, ammunition, and other military supplies for the Continental Army. Its shipyards constructed vessels for the fledgling American Navy, while its financiers struggled to fund the war effort through loans and currency issues. The social fabric of Philadelphia was tested by the demands of revolution and war. Loyalists who remained faithful to the British Crown found themselves increasingly isolated and sometimes persecuted by their patriot neighbours. The city's Quaker community faced particular challenges as their pacifist beliefs conflicted with the violent realities of the independence struggle. Some Quakers supported the revolution despite their religious scruples, while others maintained their neutrality or even their loyalty to Britain. The winter of 1776 to 1777 brought the revolutionary crisis to Philadelphia's doorstep in the most dramatic way possible. After suffering defeats in New York, George Washington's Continental Army retreated across New Jersey with British forces in pursuit. The fate of the revolution hung in the balance as Washington prepared his desperate gamble to cross the Delaware River and attack Trenton. Philadelphia's residents watched anxiously as their fate was decided by military events just miles from their city. The Continental Congress, fearing British capture of the capital, fled Philadelphia for Baltimore in December 1776. The city that had boldly declared independence just months earlier now faced the possibility of British occupation and the collapse of the revolutionary cause. Washington's stunning victories at Trenton and Princeton in late December 1776 and early January 1777 saved both Philadelphia and the Revolution. The psychological impact of these victories was as important as their military significance, demonstrating that the Continental Army could defeat professional British and Hessian forces. Philadelphia celebrated these triumphs with relief and renewed determination to support the independence struggle. The return of the Continental Congress to Philadelphia in March 1777 marked the beginning of a new phase in both the city's history and the American Revolution. Philadelphia had survived its first serious test as the capital of an independent nation, but greater challenges lay ahead. The city that had given birth to American independence would soon face the ultimate test of its commitment to the revolutionary cause. The British recognition that Philadelphia represented the heart of American resistance led to one of the most ambitious military campaigns of the Revolutionary War. General William Howe's strategy for 1777 centered on capturing the rebel capital, believing that controlling Philadelphia would effectively end the revolution by demoralizing the colonists and demonstrating British power. This campaign would test everything that Philadelphia had built over nearly a century of growth and development. The British approach began not with a direct assault on the city, but with a complex naval operation that caught American defenders off guard. Rather than marching overland from New York, Howe loaded his army of over 15,000 troops onto ships and sailed south along the Atlantic coast. This unexpected route allowed the British to bypass American fortifications along the Delaware River and approach Philadelphia from the Chesapeake Bay. As news of the British fleet's movements reached Philadelphia in late summer 1777, the city prepared for siege. Residents who could afford to do so fled westward, loading wagons with their most precious possessions and leaving behind homes and businesses they had spent years building. Those who remained worked frantically to hide valuables and prepare for what many assumed would be a brutal occupation. The Continental Congress once again faced the difficult decision of whether to remain in Philadelphia or seek safety elsewhere. The symbolism of abandoning the birthplace of independence weighed heavily against the practical necessity of preserving the revolutionary government. After intense debate, Congress voted to evacuate the city, moving first to Lancaster and then to York, Pennsylvania. Washington's Continental Army, now seasoned by months of campaigning, positioned itself between the British forces and Philadelphia. The resulting Battle of Brandywine on September 11th, 1777, demonstrated both the improved capabilities of American forces and the continued advantages held by British professional soldiers. Despite fighting courageously, the Americans were outflanked and forced to retreat toward Philadelphia. The aftermath of Brandywine left Philadelphia virtually defenseless. Washington's battered army lacked the strength to defend the city directly, while local militia units were insufficient to resist a determined British assault. On September 26, 1777, British and Hessian troops marched into Philadelphia without significant opposition, beginning an occupation that would last 9 months. The British occupation of Philadelphia represented a profound test of the city's commitment to independence. General Howe established his headquarters in the finest mansion available, while British officers took over the homes of prominent patriots who had fled the city. Loyalists who had remained hidden during the early years of revolution now emerged to welcome their liberators and reclaim their place in Philadelphia society. For ordinary Philadelphians, the occupation brought both hardships and opportunities. British troops required housing, food and services, creating economic activity that had been disrupted by the war. However, the presence of foreign soldiers also created tensions, particularly as discipline broke down and incidents of theft and violence became more common. The city that had prided itself on tolerance and order found itself struggling with the realities of military occupation. The Continental Army's winter encampment at Valley Forge, just 20 miles from occupied Philadelphia, created a surreal situation where the capital of revolutionary America remained under British control, while the Continental Army struggled to survive in the Pennsylvania countryside. The contrast between British officers enjoying Philadelphia's comforts and American soldiers enduring hunger and cold at Valley Forge became a powerful symbol of the Revolution's challenges. Despite the occupation, resistance to British rule continued within Philadelphia itself. Secret networks of patriots maintained communication with the Continental Army and Congress, providing intelligence about British activities and plans. Some residents engaged in subtle acts of defiance, refusing to cooperate with British authorities or maintaining their support for independence despite the risks. The occupation also revealed the complex loyalties that existed within Philadelphia's diverse population. Some residents genuinely welcomed British rule, particularly those who had always opposed independence or who had suffered economic losses due to the war. Others maintained a pragmatic neutrality, cooperating with whoever held power while privately supporting whichever side seemed most likely to protect their interests. Religious communities faced particular challenges during the occupation. Anglican churches, which had maintained ties to the Church of England, found themselves caught between their theological connections to Britain and their American congregations' increasingly patriotic sentiments. Quakers, many of whom had opposed the war from the beginning, sometimes found their pacifist principles more compatible with British rule than with the violent revolution. The winter of 1777 to 1778 marked a crucial turning point in both the war and Philadelphia's role in the independence struggle. While British forces controlled the city, their position was increasingly precarious. The Continental Army's survival at Valley Forge, despite enormous hardships, demonstrated American resilience and determination. More importantly, France's entry into the war following the American victory at Saratoga fundamentally changed the strategic situation. The French alliance transformed the Revolutionary War from a colonial rebellion into a global conflict that stretched British resources across multiple theatres. The Royal Navy, which had dominated American waters since the war began, now faced French naval challenges in the Caribbean, Europe, and eventually American coastal waters. This shift would prove crucial to Philadelphia's liberation and America's ultimate victory. British strategy began to shift in response to these changing circumstances. The occupation of Philadelphia, originally intended to end the rebellion, had instead become a costly commitment that tied down troops needed elsewhere. General Henry Clinton, who replaced Howe as British commander, recognized that holding Philadelphia offered diminishing returns, while French involvement opened new strategic priorities. The decision to evacuate Philadelphia reflected broader changes in British war aims. Rather than seeking to crush the rebellion through territorial conquest, British strategy increasingly focused on defending key naval bases and exploiting American regional divisions. Philadelphia, despite its symbolic importance, was not essential to this new approach and required too many resources to maintain. The British evacuation of Philadelphia in June 1778 marked another dramatic transformation in the city's wartime experience. As British troops prepared to march back to New York, Loyalists faced agonizing decisions about their future. Those who had openly supported British rule during the occupation knew they could expect harsh treatment from returning patriots. Thousands of Loyalists chose to leave Philadelphia with the British Army, abandoning homes, businesses, and communities where their families had lived for generations. The exodus represented a profound social upheaval that would reshape Philadelphia's population and politics for years to come. Properties abandoned by departing Loyalists were often confiscated and sold to support the war effort or reward Patriot supporters. The return of Patriot control to Philadelphia was marked by both celebration and retribution. Citizens who had remained loyal to the independence cause throughout the occupation welcomed the Continental Army's return with parades and public festivities. However, the joy was tempered by the need to address collaboration with British authorities and the economic disruption caused by months of occupation. The Continental Congress returned to Philadelphia in July 1778, re-establishing the city as the capital of the United States. However, the experience of occupation had changed both the city and the revolutionary government. The vulnerability demonstrated by the British capture of Philadelphia led to discussions about establishing a more secure permanent capital, while the challenges of governing during wartime had strengthened federal institutions. Philadelphia's recovery from the occupation revealed the resilience that had characterized the city since its founding. Merchants quickly re-established trade networks. Craftsmen resumed production for both civilian and military needs, and the port once again bustled with activity. The city's fundamental economic advantages, combined with the determination of its residents, enabled a remarkably rapid return to prosperity. The experience of revolution and occupation had also transformed Philadelphia's social and political culture. The departure of many loyalists removed a conservative influence that had moderated the city's politics since the colonial period. New leaders emerged from the revolutionary movement, often representing different social classes and ethnic groups than the traditional elite who had dominated colonial Philadelphia. The war's continuation, after Philadelphia's liberation, kept the city mobilized for the independence struggle. Local workshops continued producing military supplies, while the port served as a crucial entry point for French aid and other foreign support. Philadelphia's financial institutions, though strained by wartime demands, provided essential services for both the Continental Congress and military forces. As the focus of military operations shifted to the southern colonies after 1778, Philadelphia began to envision its post-war future. The city that had given birth to American independence and survived British occupation was positioned to play a leading role in the new nation that was emerging from the revolutionary struggle. The foundations laid during the colonial period, tested by war and occupation, would soon support Philadelphia's transformation into the capital of an independent republic. The challenges ahead were enormous: creating effective government institutions, establishing economic stability, and defining the relationship between individual states and the federal union would require the same innovative thinking that had produced the Declaration of Independence. Philadelphia, with its traditions of tolerance, debate, and practical problem-solving, seemed ideally suited to host these crucial developments in American history. American history. The years following Philadelphia's liberation from British occupation marked a period of extraordinary transformation that would establish the city's role as the crucible of American democracy. As the Revolutionary War continued in distant theaters, Philadelphia found itself grappling with challenges that went far beyond military victory. The city that had declared independence now faced the monumentally complex task of defining what that independence would actually mean in practice. The immediate post-war period brought both opportunities and uncertainties that tested Philadelphia's resilience in entirely new ways. Trade relationships that had been severed during the conflict needed to be rebuilt, but now with former enemies rather than colonial partners. British merchants who had once dominated Philadelphia's commerce were replaced by new trading partners from France, Spain, and the Netherlands. The city's port, which had been blockaded and occupied during the war, slowly came back to life as international vessels began arriving with goods that had been scarce for years. The economic recovery was complicated by the financial chaos that had accompanied the revolutionary struggle. The Continental Congress had financed the war through a combination of loans, currency issues, and requisitions from individual states, creating a complex web of debt and monetary instability. Philadelphia's merchants and financiers found themselves navigating an entirely new financial landscape, where the value of currencies fluctuated wildly, and credit relationships had been disrupted by years of warfare. Robert Morris, Philadelphia's most prominent financier, emerged as a key figure in addressing these economic challenges. His efforts to establish stable financial institutions and manage the new nation's debt made Philadelphia the unofficial financial capital of America. The Bank of North America, chartered in 1781 and headquartered in Philadelphia, represented one of the first attempts to create modern banking institutions that could support the growing republic's economic needs. The city's manufacturing sector, which had expanded during the war to meet military demands, now faced the challenge of adapting to peacetime markets. Skilled craftsmen who had produced weapons and military supplies needed to find new outlets for their expertise. Some transitioned to producing consumer goods that had been unavailable during the British blockade, while others found opportunities in the construction boom that followed the war as Philadelphia rebuilt and expanded. The social fabric of Philadelphia was equally transformed by the revolutionary experience. The departure of loyalist families had created opportunities for new residents and changed the city's political dynamics. Immigrants from Ireland, Germany, and other European countries arrived in increasing numbers, drawn by reports of American prosperity and freedom. The city's traditional religious diversity expanded even further as different Protestant denominations established new congregations. The question of slavery, which had been largely avoided during the Revolutionary crisis, now demanded attention in a city founded on principles of equality and human rights. Pennsylvania passed the first gradual emancipation law in 1780, beginning a slow process of ending slavery that would take decades to complete. Philadelphia's large free black population grew as enslaved people gained their freedom and others migrated to the city seeking economic opportunities. The intellectual ferment that had characterized Philadelphia during the colonial period intensified during the post-war years. The American Philosophical Society resumed its meetings and research activities, while new institutions emerged to serve the educational and cultural needs of the growing population. The University of Pennsylvania, which had suspended operations during the British occupation, reopened and began expanding its curriculum to meet the needs of the new republic. Perhaps most importantly, Philadelphia found itself at the center of the most fundamental political questions facing the new nation. The Articles of Confederation, which had provided a framework for wartime cooperation between the states, proved inadequate for governing an independent country. Issues of taxation, interstate commerce, and federal authority created constant friction between state and national governments. The weakness of the Confederation government became increasingly apparent as Philadelphia struggled with problems that required coordinated solutions. The city's merchants faced trade barriers erected by neighboring states, while its manufacturers competed unfairly with European goods that entered through ports with lower tariffs. The inability of the federal government to regulate commerce or raise revenue effectively threatened to undermine the economic prosperity that Philadelphia needed to maintain its position as America's leading city. These frustrations came to a head during the mid-1780s when a series of economic and political crises convinced many leaders that fundamental changes were necessary. Shays' Rebellion in Massachusetts demonstrated the potential for domestic unrest, while diplomatic humiliations abroad showed America's weakness on the international stage. Philadelphia's business community, which depended on stable government and predictable policies, increasingly supported calls for a stronger federal system. The decision to convene a constitutional convention in Philadelphia during the summer of 1787 reflected the city's continued importance as a venue for crucial political negotiations. Once again, delegates from throughout the American states gathered in the same Pennsylvania State House, where independence had been declared 11 years earlier. However, the challenges they faced were in many ways more complex than those confronted by the Continental Congress. The delegates who assembled in Philadelphia represented a remarkable cross-section of American leadership, including many who had played crucial roles in the independence struggle. George Washington's presence as president of the convention lent dignity and legitimacy to the proceedings, while figures like Benjamin Franklin provided continuity with the city's revolutionary heritage. Younger delegates like Alexander Hamilton brought new ideas about finance and government that reflected the lessons learned during the post-war period. the debates that unfolded in Philadelphia during that sweltering summer of 1787 addressed fundamental questions about the nature of Republican government and federal authority. Delegates grappled with issues of representation, sovereignty, and individual rights that had been theoretical during the independence struggle but now required practical solutions. The compromises that emerged from these discussions would shape American government for centuries to come. The Virginia Plan, presented early in the convention, proposed a radically different federal system that would give the national government unprecedented authority over the states. This proposal sparked intense debates about the proper balance between state and federal power, with smaller states fearing domination by their larger neighbors. The negotiations required all of Philadelphia's traditional skills in diplomacy and compromise. The Connecticut Compromise, which established the bicameral structure of Congress with proportional representation in the House and equal representation in the Senate, demonstrated the kind of creative problem-solving that had characterized Philadelphia's approach to political challenges since its founding. This solution satisfied competing interests while creating a workable framework for federal governance. The question of slavery posed perhaps the most difficult challenge for the Constitutional Convention. Delegates from southern states insisted on protecting their property rights in enslaved people, while northern delegates increasingly viewed slavery as incompatible with American principles of liberty and equality. The compromises that emerged from these discussions reflected the political realities of 1787, but would create lasting tensions in American society. The 3/5 Compromise, which counted enslaved people as partial persons for purposes of representation and taxation, satisfied immediate political needs while avoiding the fundamental moral questions that slavery raised. Philadelphia's own gradual approach to emancipation provided a model that some hoped might eventually spread throughout the nation, but the economic interests at stake made such optimism premature. The debates over individual rights and federal authority reflected deeper philosophical questions about the nature of Republican government. Anti-federalist critics argued that the proposed Constitution granted too much power to the federal government and failed to protect individual liberties adequately. These concerns led to promises that a Bill of Rights would be added to address specific protections for freedom of speech, religion, and other fundamental rights. The completion of the Constitutional Convention in September 1787 marked another pivotal moment in Philadelphia's history and American development. The document that emerged from the city's deliberations created a framework for federal government that balanced competing interests while providing mechanisms for peaceful change and adaptation. The signing ceremony in Independence Hall linked the new Constitution directly to the Declaration of Independence, emphasizing continuity with the revolutionary principles that had been proclaimed in the same room. The ratification debates that followed the convention's completion tested Philadelphia's commitment to the new federal system. Pennsylvania was among the first states to ratify the Constitution, but the decision was not without controversy. Anti-federalist critics argued that the proposed government was too powerful and too removed from local control, while federalist supporters insisted that effective national government was essential for prosperity and security. The establishment of the new federal government under the Constitution brought unexpected challenges and opportunities to Philadelphia. The city had assumed that it would continue as the national capital, given its role in both declaring independence and drafting the Constitution. However, the political compromises that created the new government included provisions for eventually moving the capital to a new location on the Potomac River. The decade that Philadelphia served as the temporary federal capital from 1790 to 1800 represented perhaps the most significant period in the city's history. During these crucial years, the precedents and institutions that would define American government were established in Philadelphia's streets and meeting halls. The city that had given birth to American independence now became the laboratory where democratic governance was tested and refined. The arrival of the federal government transformed Philadelphia's social and economic life in profound ways. Government officials, foreign diplomats, and other prominent figures established residences in the city, creating demand for luxury goods and services that had been scarce during the post-war period. The concentration of political power also attracted lobbyists, journalists, and others seeking to influence federal policy. President Washington's decision to establish his official residence in Philadelphia brought unprecedented prestige to the city, while also creating new social protocols and expectations. The presidential mansion on Market Street became a center of political and social activity that influenced fashion, culture, and business throughout the region. Martha Washington's weekly receptions established patterns of political entertaining that would persist long after the capital moved to Washington. The establishment of federal departments and agencies in Philadelphia created new career opportunities for the city's educated residents, while also attracting talented individuals from other states. The Treasury Department, led by Alexander Hamilton, developed the financial policies that would establish American credit and create the foundation for economic growth. The State Department, under Thomas Jefferson and later Edmund Randolph, managed the complex diplomatic relationships that were essential for American security. The political tensions that emerged during this period reflected deeper philosophical divisions about the direction of American development. Hamilton's financial policies, including the establishment of a national bank and the assumption of state debts, sparked fierce debates about federal power and economic policy. Philadelphia found itself at the center of these controversies as competing political factions organized and competed for influence. The emergence of political parties during the 1790s transformed Philadelphia's political culture in ways that the Founding Fathers had not anticipated. The Federalist Party, led by Hamilton and supported by many of Philadelphia's merchants and professionals, favored strong federal government and close ties with Britain. The Democratic Republican Party, organized around Jefferson and Madison, advocated for limited federal power and sympathy for revolutionary France. These political divisions were intensified by international developments that forced Americans to choose sides in European conflicts. The French Revolution, which began shortly after the Constitutional Convention, created enthusiasm among some Americans while alarming others who feared similar upheavals in the United States. Philadelphia's diverse population included both French refugees fleeing revolutionary violence and Americans who supported French Republican principles. The yellow fever epidemic that struck Philadelphia in 1793 tested the city's resilience and revealed the limitations of 18th century medicine and public health measures. The disease, which killed thousands of residents, including prominent political figures, forced the federal government to flee the city and disrupted normal economic and social activities for months. The epidemic also highlighted the courage of individuals like Richard Allen and Absalom Jones, leaders of Philadelphia's black community who organized relief efforts despite facing discrimination and false accusations. The recovery from the yellow fever epidemic demonstrated Philadelphia's remarkable ability to rebuild and adapt to changing circumstances. The city implemented new sanitation measures and public health policies while continuing to serve as the nation's capital and commercial center. The experience also strengthened community bonds and highlighted the importance of civic cooperation in addressing collective challenges. As the 18th century drew to a close, Philadelphia prepared for another significant transition as the federal capital prepared to move to the new city of Washington. The loss of the federal government represented both an economic challenge and an opportunity for Philadelphia to define a new role in the growing American Republic. The city that had served as the birthplace of independence and the cradle of constitutional government, would need to find new sources of prosperity and influence in the 19th century. The foundations that had been established during Philadelphia's colonial period and strengthened during the Revolutionary and early national years would prove adequate to support the challenges ahead. The city's traditions of tolerance, innovation, and practical problem-solving had enabled it to play a central role in creating the American nation. Now those same qualities would be tested as Philadelphia adapted to a changing role in an expanding country that was beginning to fulfill the promise of the independence that had been declared in Independence Hall decades earlier. The departure of the federal government in 1800 marked the end of an era for Philadelphia, but it also opened new chapters in the city's remarkable story. As government officials packed their belongings and headed south to the newly constructed Capitol on the Potomac, many Philadelphians wondered whether their city could maintain its prominence without the prestige and economic benefits of serving as the national seat of power. The answer would come through innovation, industry, and an entrepreneurial spirit that transformed challenges into opportunities. The early decades of the 19th century witnessed Philadelphia's evolution from a political capital to an industrial powerhouse that would reshape American manufacturing and commerce. The city's strategic location, skilled workforce, and accumulated capital from decades of trade provided the perfect foundation for the Industrial Revolution that was beginning to sweep across America. What emerged was a manufacturing centre that rivaled anything in Europe while maintaining the distinctive character that had defined Philadelphia since its founding. The textile industry became the cornerstone of Philadelphia's industrial transformation. Mills along the Schuylkill River harnessed water power to drive machinery that could produce cloth faster and more efficiently than traditional hand methods. These early factories attracted workers from the surrounding countryside and from Europe, creating new neighbourhoods and changing the social fabric of the city. The success of textile manufacturing encouraged investment in other industries. From metalworking to chemical production, Samuel Slater's innovations in textile machinery found fertile ground in Philadelphia's workshops, where skilled craftsmen adapted and improved upon British designs. The city's tradition of craftsmanship, dating back to colonial times, proved invaluable as manufacturers sought to create products that could compete with European imports. Philadelphia's artisans developed new techniques and processes that made American-made goods not only competitive, but often superior to their foreign counterparts. The expansion of manufacturing created demands for better transportation systems to move raw materials and finished goods. The Philadelphia and Lancaster Turnpike, completed in the 1790s, had demonstrated the potential for improved overland transport. Now, entrepreneurs and government officials collaborated on even more ambitious projects that would connect Philadelphia to distant markets and resources. The construction of the main line of public works represented one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects of the early 19th century. This system of canals, railroads, and inclined planes connected Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, opening the wealth of western Pennsylvania to the city's merchants and manufacturers. Coal from the anthracite fields could now reach Philadelphia's factories and homes, while finished goods could travel westward to expanding frontier markets. Canal construction transformed the landscape around Philadelphia as waterways were dug to connect the Delaware and Schuylkill rivers with inland regions. The Schuylkill Canal brought coal from the interior directly to the city's doorstep, fueling the steam engines that powered an expanding industrial economy. These transportation improvements attracted new businesses and residents while strengthening Philadelphia's position as a regional commercial center. The arrival of railroad technology in the 1830s revolutionized transportation once again. The Philadelphia, Wilmington, and Baltimore Railroad connected the city to southern markets, while other lines reached northward into New York and New England. Philadelphia's central location on the Atlantic coast made it a natural hub for the expanding railroad network that was beginning to knit the nation together. Railroad construction created new industries and employment opportunities throughout the Philadelphia region. Locomotive works and car manufacturing facilities employed thousands of skilled workers who produced the equipment needed for America's transportation revolution. The Baldwin Locomotive Works, established in Philadelphia during this period, became one of the world's largest producers of steam locomotives and a symbol of American industrial prowess. The growth of manufacturing and transportation industries attracted waves of new residents to Philadelphia throughout the early 19th century. Irish immigrants, fleeing poverty and political oppression at home, found opportunities in the city's factories and construction projects. German immigrants brought skilled trades and established communities that maintained their cultural traditions while contributing to Philadelphia's economic growth. These new immigrant communities added layers of diversity to Philadelphia's already complex social fabric. Catholic churches were built to serve Irish and German congregations, while new schools and cultural organizations helped preserve ethnic traditions. The interaction between established residents and newcomers sometimes created tensions, but it also generated the creative energy that fueled the city's continued growth and innovation. The expansion of Philadelphia's population required new neighborhoods and housing developments that spread the city far beyond its colonial boundaries. Row houses became the characteristic architectural form, providing affordable housing for working families while creating the distinctive streetscapes that still define much of Philadelphia today. These neighborhoods developed their own commercial districts, schools, and community institutions that served the needs of growing populations. Public health and sanitation challenges accompanied rapid urban growth. The yellow fever epidemics of the 1790s had demonstrated the dangers of crowded urban conditions, leading to improved water systems and waste management. The Fairmount Waterworks, completed in the 1810s, provided clean water to city residents while creating one of Philadelphia's most beautiful architectural landmarks along the Schuylkill River. Educational institutions expanded to meet the needs of a more complex urban society. The Philadelphia public school system, established in the 1810s, was among the first in the nation to provide free education to all children, regardless of their family's economic circumstances. Private academies and colleges also flourished, creating a network of educational institutions that prepared young Philadelphians for careers in business, manufacturing, and the professions. The medical schools and hospitals that had been established during the colonial period continued to grow and innovate during this era of urban expansion. The Pennsylvania Hospital pioneered new treatments and surgical techniques, while medical schools trained physicians who served not only Philadelphia, but communities throughout the expanding nation. These institutions contributed to Philadelphia's reputation as a center of learning and scientific advancement. Scientific and technological innovation thrived in Philadelphia's workshops and laboratories. The Franklin Institute, founded in 1824, promoted the practical application of scientific knowledge to industrial problems. Its exhibitions and lectures helped spread new technologies throughout the region, while fostering the kind of innovation that had characterized Philadelphia since Benjamin Franklin's time. The city's publishing industry expanded dramatically during this period, producing newspapers, books, and periodicals that shaped American culture and opinion. Philadelphia publishers produced some of the most influential magazines and journals of the early 19th century, while the city's newspapers provided detailed coverage of local, national, and international events. This vibrant print culture contributed to an informed citizenry and helped maintain Philadelphia's influence in national affairs despite the loss of the federal capital. Banking and financial services evolved to meet the needs of an increasingly complex economy. Philadelphia banks provided capital for industrial expansion while developing new financial instruments and practices. The city's bankers played crucial roles in financing transportation improvements, manufacturing ventures, and real estate development throughout the region. The Second Bank of the United States, chartered in 1816 and headquartered in Philadelphia, represented the pinnacle of American financial institution development. Its imposing Greek Revival building on Chestnut Street symbolized Philadelphia's continued importance in national economic affairs. The bank's operations extended throughout the country, making Philadelphia a financial center that rivaled New York and Boston. Cultural institutions flourished as Philadelphia's prosperity created demand for entertainment, education, and artistic expression. The city's theaters attracted touring companies and resident performers who presented everything from Shakespeare to popular melodramas. Musical societies and orchestras provided opportunities for both amateur and professional musicians, while art galleries and museums began collecting works that documented American cultural development. The Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts, founded in 1805, became the nation's first museum and art school. Its collections and exhibitions helped establish standards for American artistic achievement while providing training for generations of painters and sculptors. The Academy's influence extended far beyond Philadelphia, shaping artistic taste and practice throughout the growing nation. Religious life in Philadelphia continued to reflect the city's founding commitment to tolerance and diversity. New denominations established churches and meeting houses throughout the expanding city, while existing congregations built larger and more elaborate buildings to serve growing memberships. The variety of religious expression available in Philadelphia attracted residents from many different backgrounds and contributed to the city's reputation for openness and acceptance. The anti-slavery movement gained momentum in Philadelphia during these decades, building on the gradual emancipation law passed during the Revolutionary period. The Pennsylvania Abolition Society, founded in 1775 and reorganized after the war, worked to end slavery and assist freed slaves in building new lives. Philadelphia's large free black community created churches, schools, and mutual aid societies that served as models for similar institutions throughout the North. Political life in Philadelphia reflected the broader partisan divisions that characterized American politics during the early 19th century. The city's merchants and manufacturers generally supported Federalist and later Whig policies that promoted commerce and industry, while working-class residents often favored Democratic candidates who promised to protect their interests against wealthy elites. These political debates played out in newspapers, public meetings, and election campaigns that engaged citizens in the democratic process. Labor organization began to emerge as workers sought to improve their conditions and wages in the expanding industrial economy. Skilled craftsmen formed associations to protect their trades and maintain standards, while factory workers began to organize for better working conditions and shorter hours. These early labor movements faced significant challenges from employers and government officials, but they laid the foundation for more effective organization in later decades. The War of 1812 brought new challenges and opportunities to Philadelphia as the nation once again faced conflict with Britain. The city's manufacturers benefited from increased demand for military supplies, while its shipyards built vessels for the expanding American Navy. The war also demonstrated America's growing industrial capacity and Philadelphia's crucial role in supporting the nation's defense. By the 1820s, Philadelphia had successfully transformed itself from a colonial trading center and revolutionary capital into a modern industrial city that was helping to define what America could become. The population had grown to over 100,000 residents, making it one of the largest cities in the nation. More importantly, the city had developed the economic diversity and institutional strength that would enable it to continue growing and adapting to changing circumstances. The foundation laid during these crucial decades of the early 19th century would support Philadelphia through the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. The city's commitment to innovation, education, and practical problem-solving had enabled it to reinvent itself after losing its role as the national capital. These same qualities would prove essential as Philadelphia faced the transformative changes of the mid-19th century, including massive immigration, technological revolution, and the national crisis over slavery that would test the very foundations of American democracy. The stage was set for Philadelphia to play new roles in American development, from industrial powerhouse to cultural center to battleground for competing visions of what the nation should become. The city that had given birth to American independence was preparing to help define what that independence would mean for future generations of Americans seeking opportunity, freedom, and prosperity in a rapidly changing world. The transformation that had begun in Philadelphia's early industrial period accelerated dramatically during the middle decades of the 19th century, driven by forces that would reshape not only the city but the entire American continent. The discovery of vast coal deposits in northeastern Pennsylvania created unprecedented opportunities for Philadelphia's manufacturers, while the expanding railroad network made the city a crucial hub for moving goods and people across the growing nation. The anthracite coal fields that stretched across the mountains north of Philadelphia proved to be a revolutionary energy source that burned cleaner and hotter than wood or soft coal. Philadelphia entrepreneurs quickly recognized the potential of this resource and invested heavily in the infrastructure needed to bring it to market. The Reading Railroad, chartered in 1833, was specifically designed to transport coal from the mining regions to Philadelphia's ports and industrial districts. Coal transformed Philadelphia's manufacturing capabilities in ways that few could have imagined. Furnaces that had struggled to reach the high temperatures needed for quality iron production could now achieve unprecedented heat levels, enabling the production of superior metals and alloys. The city's metalworking industries expanded rapidly as demand grew for railroad equipment, machinery, and construction materials needed throughout the expanding nation. The Baldwin Locomotive Works epitomized Philadelphia's emergence as a manufacturing powerhouse. Founded by Matthias Baldwin in a small workshop, the company grew to become one of the world's largest producers of steam locomotives. Baldwin's innovations in locomotive design and manufacturing processes made American-built engines competitive with the best European products, while creating thousands of jobs for Philadelphia workers. Textile manufacturing continued to expand throughout the Philadelphia region, with mills along the Schuylkill and Delaware rivers producing cotton, wool, and silk fabrics for markets across America. The introduction of power looms and other mechanized equipment increased productivity while reducing costs, making Philadelphia textiles competitive with imports from Britain and other European manufacturing centers. The city's chemical industry emerged during this period as entrepreneurs recognized opportunities to produce the acids, dyes, and other substances needed by expanding manufacturing sectors. Philadelphia chemists and engineers developed new processes for producing sulfuric acid, soap, and other industrial chemicals, while pharmaceutical companies began manufacturing medicines and medical supplies for the growing urban population. Immigration accelerated dramatically during the 1840s and 1850s as economic hardship and political upheaval in Europe drove millions to seek opportunities in America. Philadelphia attracted large numbers of Irish immigrants fleeing the devastating potato famine, as well as Germans escaping political persecution following the failed revolutions of 1848. These new residents brought skills, traditions, and energy that enriched the city's cultural life while providing labour for expanding industries. The Irish immigrants who arrived in Philadelphia during this period faced significant challenges and discrimination. Many were desperately poor and lacked the skills needed for industrial work, forcing them to accept the most dangerous and poorly paid jobs available. They crowded into tenement buildings in neighbourhoods like Kensington and Southwark, creating dense communities that maintained Irish traditions while gradually adapting to American life. German immigrants generally arrived with more resources and skills than their Irish counterparts. Many were craftsmen, shopkeepers, or farmers who established businesses and bought property relatively quickly after their arrival. German neighbourhoods developed their own churches, schools, and cultural organisations, creating a distinctive ethnic enclave that contributed significantly to Philadelphia's economic and cultural development. The interaction between different immigrant groups and established residents sometimes created tensions that erupted into violence. The Native American riots of the 1840s, despite their name having nothing to do with indigenous peoples, reflected nativist fears about Catholic immigration and foreign influence. These disturbances revealed the challenges of integrating diverse populations into a cohesive urban community. Religious diversity expanded as new immigrant communities established churches and institutions to serve their spiritual and social needs. Catholic parishes multiplied throughout the city to serve Irish, German, and other immigrant populations, while Protestant denominations also grew and diversified. The construction of the Cathedral Basilica of Saints Peter and Paul symbolized the growing influence of Catholicism in a city that had been founded by Protestant Quakers. Educational institutions adapted to serve the needs of a more diverse and complex urban population. The Philadelphia public school system expanded to accommodate growing numbers of children, while private schools and academies served families who could afford alternatives. The establishment of Central High School in 1838 provided advanced education for academically talented students, regardless of their economic background. Higher education flourished as Philadelphia's prosperity supported expanded colleges and universities. The University of Pennsylvania grew significantly during this period, adding new professional schools and expanding its research activities. Jefferson Medical College, founded in 1824, became one of the nation's leading medical schools and attracted students from throughout America and abroad. The city's publishing industry reached new heights of influence and sophistication during the mid-19th century. Graham's Magazine and Godey's Lady's Book, both published in Philadelphia, achieved national circulation and helped shape American literary taste and cultural standards. The Saturday Evening Post, which would become one of America's most influential magazines, was also established in Philadelphia during this period. Transportation improvements continued to transform Philadelphia's connections to the rest of the nation and the world. The Pennsylvania Railroad, chartered in 1846, created a direct route between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh that bypassed the slower canal system. This railroad became one of the most profitable and influential corporations in America, with its headquarters in Philadelphia serving as the nerve center for a transportation empire that stretched across the continent. The expansion of railroad networks made Philadelphia a major hub for both passenger and freight traffic. Union Station and other terminals accommodated thousands of travelers daily, while freight yards handled the movement of goods between the city's manufacturers and markets throughout America. The economic impact of these transportation improvements extended far beyond the railroad companies themselves, creating opportunities for hotels, restaurants, and other service industries. Maritime commerce remained important despite the growth of overland transportation. Philadelphia's port handled increasing volumes of trade with Europe, the Caribbean, and other American cities. Shipbuilding continued to be a major industry, with Philadelphia yards producing both commercial vessels and warships for the expanding American Navy. The city's financial sector evolved to meet the needs of an increasingly complex economy. Banks provided capital for industrial expansion, real estate development, and transportation improvements throughout the region. Philadelphia financiers played important roles in funding railroad construction and other major infrastructure projects that were transforming the American landscape. Manufacturing diversity became one of Philadelphia's greatest strengths during this period. Rather than depending on a single industry, the city developed a broad base of manufacturing activities that included textiles, metals, chemicals, machinery, and consumer goods. This diversity provided stability during economic downturns and created opportunities for innovation and entrepreneurship. The city's skilled workforce became renowned throughout America for its technical expertise and productivity. Philadelphia mechanics and craftsmen were sought after by employers in other cities, while the city's technical schools and apprenticeship programs trained workers for industries throughout the nation. This reputation for quality workmanship attracted businesses and investment from across America and Europe. Urban development accelerated as Philadelphia's population grew and prosperity increased. New neighborhoods were laid out with the regular street grid that had characterized the city since William Penn's original plan. Row houses remained the dominant architectural form, but they became more elaborate and comfortable as building techniques improved and residents could afford better accommodations. Public amenities expanded to serve the growing population and demonstrate the city's civic pride. Fairmount Park was established in the 1850s as one of America's first large urban parks, providing recreational opportunities and green space for residents of all social classes. The park's location along the Schuylkill River created a scenic landscape that attracted visitors from throughout the region. Water and sanitation systems improved significantly during this period as city officials recognized the importance of public health infrastructure. The Fairmount Waterworks was expanded and modernized to provide clean water to all parts of the growing city, while new sewer systems addressed the waste disposal challenges created by dense urban population. Gaslighting was introduced to Philadelphia's streets and buildings during the 1840s and 1850s, extending the hours when business and social activities could take place. The Philadelphia Gas Works became a model for similar utilities in other American cities, while the improved lighting enhanced both safety and commerce in the urban environment. Cultural institutions flourished as Philadelphia's prosperity supported expanded opportunities for entertainment, education, and artistic expression. The Academy of Music, completed in 1857, provided a magnificent venue for opera, concerts, and other performances that attracted the finest artists from America and Europe. The building's acoustics and architecture made it one of the premier performance spaces in the nation. Libraries and museums expanded their collections and services to serve both scholarly research and popular education. The Library Company of Philadelphia, founded by Benjamin Franklin, continued to grow and modernize while maintaining its position as one of America's most important research libraries. Museums began collecting artifacts and specimens that documented natural history and human achievement. The anti-slavery movement gained strength in Philadelphia during the 1840s and 1850s as moral opposition to slavery intensified throughout the North. The Pennsylvania Anti-Slavery Society organized lectures, publications, and political activities that influenced opinion throughout the region. Underground railroad activities helped escaped slaves find freedom and safety in Philadelphia and other northern cities. Philadelphia's free black community continued to grow and develop institutions that served their needs while contributing to the broader struggle against slavery. Churches, schools, and mutual aid societies provided essential services while demonstrating the capabilities and achievements of African Americans. Leaders like Robert Purvis and James Forten gained national recognition for their anti-slavery activities and community leadership. Political tensions increased as national debates over slavery intensified during the 1850s. Philadelphia's diverse population included both strong anti-slavery advocates and residents who feared that abolition would disrupt economic relationships with southern states. These divisions would become more pronounced as the nation moved toward the crisis that would ultimately lead to civil war. The economic prosperity that Philadelphia enjoyed during the mid-19th century created both opportunities and challenges that would test the city's ability to maintain its position as one of America's most important urban centers. The industrial foundation that had been built during these decades would prove essential during the coming national crisis, while the social and cultural institutions that had developed would help the city adapt to the dramatic changes that lay ahead. By 1860, Philadelphia had grown to over 500,000 residents, making it the second largest city in the United States. More importantly, it had developed the economic diversity, institutional strength, and cultural sophistication that would enable it to play crucial roles in the preservation of the Union and the transformation of American society that would follow the Civil War. The stage was set for Philadelphia to demonstrate once again its capacity for leadership during times of national crisis. The city that had given birth to American independence and helped create the Constitution would soon be called upon to help preserve the Union and extend the promise of freedom to all Americans. The industrial might, cultural resources, and civic traditions that had been developed during the prosperous decades of the mid-19th century would prove essential to meeting these monumental challenges. The gathering storm clouds of sectional conflict that had been building throughout the 1850s finally broke over Philadelphia in the spring of 1861, transforming the prosperous industrial city into a crucial staging ground for the preservation of the Union. When Confederate forces fired on Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor, Philadelphia's response was swift and decisive, reflecting both the city's deep commitment to the Union cause and its remarkable capacity for mobilizing resources during times of crisis. The outbreak of civil war found Philadelphia uniquely positioned to support the Union war effort. The city's manufacturing capabilities, transportation networks, and financial institutions provided exactly the resources that President Lincoln's administration desperately needed to equip and supply massive armies. Within weeks of the war's beginning, Philadelphia's factories were retooling to produce military equipment, while the city's citizens organized volunteer regiments and relief societies. The Pennsylvania Railroad became a lifeline connecting Philadelphia to Washington and the battlefields of Virginia. Troop trains departed regularly from the city's stations, carrying regiments of volunteers southward to defend the capital and confront Confederate forces. The railroad's efficient operations ensured that supplies, reinforcements, and communications could flow smoothly between Philadelphia and the front lines, making the city an indispensable link in the Union's military logistics chain. Philadelphia's textile mills quickly adapted their production to meet wartime demands. Factories that had been producing civilian clothing switched to manufacturing uniforms, blankets, and other military supplies. The quality and quantity of these products demonstrated the industrial capacity that Pennsylvania's entrepreneurs had built during the previous decades, while providing essential equipment for Union soldiers throughout the conflict. The city's metalworking industries proved equally valuable to the war effort. The Baldwin Locomotive Works expanded production to meet the railroad's growing needs, while other manufacturers produced artillery, ammunition, and the countless metal components required by modern armies. Philadelphia's skilled workers took pride in their contributions to the Union cause, knowing that their craftsmanship could make the difference between victory and defeat on distant battlefields. Naval construction became increasingly important as the Union sought to blockade Confederate ports and control crucial waterways. Philadelphia shipyards built vessels for the expanding Federal Navy, including some of the innovative ironclad warships that would revolutionize naval warfare. The USS New Ironsides, constructed at Philadelphia's Cramp Shipyard, became one of the most successful ironclads in the Union fleet, demonstrating the city's technical expertise and industrial capabilities. The financial burden of conducting a massive civil war required resources that stretched far beyond the federal government's existing capabilities. Philadelphia banks and financiers played crucial roles in funding the war effort through bond purchases and loans that helped sustain Union operations. The city's merchants also organized relief funds and charitable organizations that provided additional support for soldiers and their families. Recruitment activities transformed Philadelphia's public spaces as volunteer companies organized and trained throughout the city. The broad squares that William Penn had incorporated into his original city plan now served as drilling grounds for citizen soldiers preparing for military service. These scenes of martial preparation created a sense of shared purpose and determination that united Philadelphia's diverse population behind the Union cause. The city's ethnic communities responded to the war crisis in ways that reflected both their commitment to their adopted country and their particular cultural backgrounds. Irish immigrants, many of whom had faced discrimination and hardship since their arrival, volunteered in large numbers for military service as a way of demonstrating their loyalty and patriotism. German immigrants brought military experience from European conflicts and often assumed leadership roles in volunteer regiments. Philadelphia's African American community faced unique challenges and opportunities during the war years. Initially excluded from military service by federal policies, Black Philadelphians organized their own training companies and prepared for the day when they would be allowed to fight for union and freedom. When that opportunity finally came with the formation of the United States Colored Troops, Philadelphia contributed significantly to these regiments. The war brought unprecedented numbers of wounded soldiers to Philadelphia's hospitals and medical facilities. Institutions that had been established during the city's earlier development now served crucial roles in treating casualties from battles throughout the Eastern Theater of operations. Philadelphia physicians and nurses gained valuable experience in trauma surgery and military medicine that advanced medical knowledge and practice. Women's participation in the war efforts extended far beyond traditional roles, as Philadelphia ladies organized relief societies, operated hospitals, and managed the complex logistics of supporting military operations. The Women's Central Relief Association coordinated activities throughout the region, while individual volunteers like Anna Morris Holstein gained national recognition for their contributions to military hospitals and soldier welfare. The industrial demands of wartime production created new employment opportunities for Philadelphia workers, while also generating significant profits for successful manufacturers. However, these economic benefits were not distributed equally, and tension sometimes arose between employers seeking to maximize production and workers demanding fair wages and working conditions. These labor disputes reflected broader social changes that were accelerating due to wartime pressures. Transportation challenges intensified as military and civilian demands competed for limited railroad capacity. The Pennsylvania Railroad struggled to balance the needs of military logistics with commercial traffic that remained essential to the city's economic vitality. These challenges required innovative scheduling and routing solutions that demonstrated the adaptability of Philadelphia's transportation systems. Communication networks became increasingly important as families sought news of loved ones serving in distant military units. Philadelphia newspapers expanded their coverage of military operations while also serving as crucial sources of information about casualties, troop movements, and government policies. The city's printing industry worked overtime to meet the demand for news and information during these anxious years. Religious institutions played vital roles in sustaining civilian morale and providing spiritual comfort during the war's darkest moments. Philadelphia's diverse religious communities organized prayer services, relief activities, and moral support that helped maintain the city's determination to see the conflict through to victory. Sermons and religious publications reinforced the moral arguments for preserving the Union and ending slavery. Educational institutions adapted their programs to meet wartime needs while also addressing the disruption caused by military service. Schools and colleges lost students and faculty to military duty, but they also developed new programs to train personnel for military support roles. The University of Pennsylvania's medical school, for example, accelerated its curriculum to produce more physicians for military service. The war's impact on Philadelphia's economy was complex and sometimes contradictory. While military contracts generated unprecedented demand for manufactured goods, the disruption of normal trade relationships created challenges for businesses that depended on southern markets or imported raw materials. Some industries thrived while others struggled to adapt to wartime conditions. Cultural life continued despite the war's demands, though it was inevitably influenced by the conflict's progress and requirements. Theatres and concert halls remained active, often featuring patriotic programs that boosted civilian morale and raised funds for military relief. Artists and writers produced works that documented the war experience and celebrated Union achievements. The Sanitary Fair held in Philadelphia during 1864 exemplified the city's ability to organize massive community efforts in support of the war. This elaborate fundraising event attracted visitors from throughout the region and raised substantial sums for military hospitals and relief activities. The fair's success demonstrated Philadelphia's organizational capabilities and its citizens' commitment to supporting Union victory. As military operations intensified during 1863 and 1864, Philadelphia found itself closer to actual combat than many residents had expected. The Confederate invasion of Pennsylvania that culminated in the Battle of Gettysburg brought enemy forces within striking distance of the city, creating genuine fears about the possibility of attack or occupation. Emergency preparations revealed both the city's vulnerability and its determination to resist Confederate advances. The aftermath of Gettysburg brought trainloads of wounded soldiers to Philadelphia hospitals, creating unprecedented demands on medical facilities and personnel. The city's response demonstrated the organizational skills and humanitarian commitment that had characterized Philadelphia since its founding, while also revealing the terrible human costs of the conflict. Military recruitment became more challenging as the war dragged on and casualty lists grew longer. The implementation of conscription policies created tensions within Philadelphia's working-class communities, while bounty payments for volunteers created new forms of inequality and resentment. These social strains tested the city's unity and revealed underlying class divisions that had been less apparent during the war's early enthusiasm. Industrial espionage and security concerns became increasingly important as Philadelphia's manufacturers produced sensitive military equipment and supplies. Confederate agents and sympathizers posed potential threats to crucial war production, requiring new security measures and surveillance activities that changed the atmosphere in some parts of the city. The economic transformation, accelerated by wartime demands, created new patterns of wealth and poverty that would persist long after the conflict ended. Some Philadelphia families accumulated unprecedented fortunes from military contracts and war-related investments, while others struggled with inflation and economic disruption. These changes laid the foundation for the Gilded Age society that would emerge in post-war America. African American migration to Philadelphia increased during the war years as escaped slaves and free blacks from the South sought safety and opportunity in northern cities. This population growth created new challenges for housing, employment, and social services, while also enriching the city's cultural life and strengthening its commitment to racial equality. The approach of Union victory brought new challenges and opportunities as Philadelphia prepared for post-war reconstruction and continued growth. The industrial capacity that had been developed during the war years positioned the city to benefit from the economic expansion that would follow peace, while the social changes accelerated by the conflict would require new institutional responses and community adaptations. By 1865, Philadelphia had demonstrated once again its capacity for leadership during times of national crisis. The city's contributions to Union victory extended far beyond the battlefield to encompass the industrial production, financial support, and civilian organization that made military success possible. The experience of total war had tested every aspect of Philadelphia society and found the city's foundations strong enough to support the enormous demands placed upon them. The end of the Civil War marked not just military victory, but also the beginning of a new chapter in Philadelphia's development. The industrial capabilities, transportation networks, and institutional strength that had been proven during the war years would now be directed toward the challenges of peace, reconstruction, and continued growth in an America that had been fundamentally transformed by the conflict. The city that had given birth to American independence and helped preserve the Union now faced the task of helping to rebuild and reunify a nation that had been torn apart by 4 years of devastating warfare. The experience, resources, and determination that Philadelphia had developed over nearly 2 centuries of growth and adaptation would prove essential to meeting these new challenges and opportunities. The stage was set for Philadelphia to play leading roles in the industrial expansion, urban development, and social transformation that would characterize American life during the final decades of the 19th century. The foundations that had supported the city through revolution, early nationhood, and civil war would now be tested by the challenges of rapid industrialization, massive immigration, and the social changes that would define America's emergence as a modern industrial power. The victory celebrations that swept through Philadelphia in April 1865 carried within them the seeds of transformation that would reshape the city more dramatically than any previous period in its long history. As church bells rang and crowds gathered in the streets to celebrate Lee's surrender at Appomattox, few could have imagined that the industrial momentum generated by wartime production would unleash forces that would make Philadelphia one of the world's great manufacturing centers within a generation. The immediate aftermath of peace brought both relief and uncertainty to a city that had mobilized every resource for 4 years of total war. Factories that had operated around the clock producing military supplies now faced the challenge of converting to peacetime production, while thousands of returning soldiers sought employment in an economy that was rapidly changing from military to civilian priorities. The transition required the same innovative thinking and practical problem-solving that had characterized Philadelphia's response to previous challenges. Railroad construction exploded across the American continent during the post-war decades, creating unprecedented demand for locomotives, rails, and rolling stock that Philadelphia's manufacturers were perfectly positioned to supply. The Baldwin Locomotive Works expanded its operations to meet orders from railroad companies building lines across the Western Territories, while steel mills and foundries produced the rails and hardware needed to span a continent with iron roads. The Pennsylvania Railroad emerged from the war as one of America's most powerful corporations, with its headquarters in Philadelphia serving as the nerve center for a transportation empire that stretched from the Atlantic to the Mississippi. The company's influence extended far beyond transportation, as its executives played crucial roles in financing industrial development and urban planning throughout the region. The massive Broad Street station, completed in the 1880s, symbolized both the railroad's power and Philadelphia's continued importance as a transportation hub. Immigration resumed with unprecedented intensity as steamship lines brought millions of Europeans to American shores seeking opportunities in the expanding industrial economy. Philadelphia attracted large numbers of these newcomers, particularly from Italy, Poland, and Eastern Europe, who joined the established Irish and German communities in neighborhoods that were rapidly expanding beyond the city's historic boundaries. These new residents brought skills, traditions, and energy that enriched Philadelphia's cultural life, while providing labor for its growing industries. The Italian immigrants who settled in South Philadelphia created one of America's most distinctive ethnic neighborhoods, complete with markets, churches, and social organizations that preserved Old World traditions while adapting to American circumstances. The annual Feast of St. Rocco became a celebration that attracted visitors from throughout the region, while Italian contractors and construction workers played crucial roles in building the infrastructure needed for urban expansion. Polish immigrants concentrated in neighborhoods like Port Richmond and Bridesburg, establishing churches, schools, and fraternal organizations that served their communities' needs while maintaining connections to their homeland. The magnificent St. Stanislaus Church became a focal point for Polish cultural and religious life, while Polish-American businesses contributed to the city's economic diversity and growth. Manufacturing diversified beyond anything William Penn could have envisioned as Philadelphia. Entrepreneurs recognized opportunities in emerging industries. Chemical companies produced dyes, medicines, and industrial compounds that served markets throughout America and abroad. The city's pharmaceutical industry, building on its medical school traditions, began developing the products and research capabilities that would make it a global center for drug development and production. Textile production reached new heights of sophistication as Philadelphia mills incorporated the latest machinery and techniques developed in Europe and America. The city's carpet industry became particularly renowned, with companies like John Bromley and Sons producing luxurious floor coverings for wealthy customers throughout the nation. These high-quality products demonstrated the skill of Philadelphia's workers and the advanced technology available in the city's factories. The Centennial Exhibition of 1876 provided Philadelphia with an unprecedented opportunity to showcase its achievements and capabilities to the world. The decision to host America's first World's Fair in Philadelphia reflected both the city's historical significance and its industrial prowess. The exhibition attracted millions of visitors who marveled at the displays of American manufacturing, technology, and culture assembled in Fairmount Park. Preparation for the Centennial required massive construction projects that transformed entire sections of the city. New transportation lines connected the exhibition grounds to downtown hotels and businesses, while improved streets and utilities enhanced the city's infrastructure. The exhibition buildings themselves, particularly the massive main building and machinery hall, demonstrated advanced construction techniques and architectural innovation. The Centennial's success generated lasting benefits for Philadelphia's economy and reputation. International visitors established business relationships that led to expanded export markets for Philadelphia products, while domestic tourists discovered the city's attractions and amenities. Hotels, restaurants, and entertainment venues that had been built for the exhibition continued to serve the city's growing tourism industry long after the fair closed. Industrial innovation accelerated as Philadelphia manufacturers sought competitive advantages in rapidly expanding markets. The city's machine shops developed new tools and processes that increased productivity while reducing costs, making Philadelphia products competitive with goods produced anywhere in the world. Patents registered by Philadelphia inventors contributed to the city's reputation as a center of technological advancement and practical innovation. Labor organization evolved in response to changing industrial conditions and the growing scale of manufacturing operations. Skilled craftsmen formed trade unions that sought to protect their wages and working conditions, while unskilled workers began organizing across ethnic and occupational lines. The Knights of Labor, which originated in Philadelphia, represented one of the most ambitious attempts to create a unified labor movement that could address the needs of all working people. The Great Railroad Strike of 1877 brought national labor conflicts to Philadelphia's doorstep as workers throughout the Pennsylvania railroad system protested wage cuts and working conditions. The violence and disruption that accompanied the strike revealed the tensions that existed between capital and labor in the rapidly industrializing economy, while also demonstrating the crucial role that railroads played in maintaining social and economic order. Urban development accelerated as Philadelphia's population grew and prosperity increased throughout the final decades of the 19th century. New neighborhoods emerged along streetcar lines that connected residential areas to downtown business districts and industrial zones. The distinctive row house architecture that had characterized colonial Philadelphia was adapted to serve different social classes and economic circumstances, creating the varied streetscapes that still define much of the city. The mainline suburbs developed along the Pennsylvania Railroad west of the city, providing affluent residents with spacious homes and easy access to downtown Philadelphia. These communities established patterns of suburban development that would influence urban planning throughout America, while also creating new markets for Philadelphia businesses and services. Public amenities expanded dramatically as city officials recognized the importance of parks, libraries, and cultural institutions in attracting residents and businesses. Fairmount Park was enlarged and improved with new roads, buildings, and recreational facilities that made it one of America's premier urban park systems. The park's location along the Schuylkill River provided scenic beauty and recreational opportunities that enhanced Philadelphia's quality of life. Educational institutions grew and diversified to meet the needs of an increasingly complex urban society. The University of Pennsylvania expanded its campus and added new professional schools, while public schools were built throughout the city's growing neighborhoods. Technical schools and business colleges prepared students for careers in manufacturing, commerce, and the professions that were driving Philadelphia's economic growth. The Free Library of Philadelphia, established in 1891, represented a major commitment to public education and cultural enrichment. The library's main building and neighborhood branches provided resources and programs that served residents throughout the city, while special collections and research facilities supported scholarly work and professional development. From a small Quaker settlement along the Delaware River to a sprawling metropolis of over 6 million people, Philadelphia's journey reflects the very essence of American ambition and resilience. We've witnessed how William Penn's vision of brotherly love grew into the birthplace of independence, survived revolution and civil war, and transformed into an industrial powerhouse that helped build modern America. Today, Philadelphia continues to evolve, balancing its rich historical legacy with the demands of contemporary urban life, proving that some cities possess an enduring capacity to reinvent themselves while honoring their past. The story of Philadelphia reminds us that the greatest cities are not just places on maps, but living embodiments of human dreams, struggles, and triumphs across the centuries.